This video was made possible by a guy named J. who commented on a video that I made called Complex Numbers. And technically, J. you are correct. The square root of -1, which is represented by the letter I, is actually called an imaginary unit, not an imaginary number. Okay, I'll give you that. But I will say that when I was in high school, I wasn't even told about the existence of imaginary numbers, much less imaginary units or anything like that. And that's part of the reason why I presented the video. The other part was because a lot of people are being taught that this is a perfectly acceptable way to write the square root of -9. And many mathematicians will agree with me that this is not the acceptable way to write the square root of -9. It should actually be written like this: 9 times the square root of -1. In my video Complex Numbers, there was nothing wrong with me saying that I is the letter representation of the square root of -1. Okay, so I is actually called the imaginary unit. So if you have 9i, which 9 is a real number, and I is the square root of -1, this combination together, let's circle it right here, this combination together, that is an imaginary number. This is an imaginary unit, this is an imaginary number. Okay, so I was correct in saying that. And that's why I posted the video. I realize that as you get into higher levels of mathematics, in which we are, if you've been following my series of videos all the way from day one all the way to now, you realize we have been getting into more complex geometrical and algebraic subjects. Up until now, it really wasn't necessary to tell all these people that are just learning remedial stuff precise information. However, now that we're getting to more precise stuff, we need to start telling people the whole story. So, no, I'm not going to take the other video down, but I will make an addendum, which this is the addendum here, to that video so that people get the rest of the story. The fact of the matter is that these people that learned from that video would have never known about imaginary numbers had it not been for that video in the first place. Okay, so even though technically you're correct that I is an imaginary unit and 9i is the imaginary number, that is true. I'm not going to argue with that. I won't even dispute you. You're absolutely right. The point was, I not only exposed people to imaginary numbers, but I also exposed them to complex numbers. And my explanation of complex numbers was correct as far as I know. And if you find anything wrong with it, you're more than welcome to let me know. So, no, I'm not taking the video down, but I'm going to post this as a response to that video, so that if they watch that video, they'll come over here and see the rest of the story. And I can tell you that, number one, let me clear this up with you. I am not receiving any compensation for this stuff whatsoever. I have not received $1 for what I've done. Okay, so, you know, sometimes people learn more from other people's mistakes than they learn if everything's exactly right. And I've said this before in a previous video, and I'm sure eventually you'll stumble upon it because I have made other mistakes and somebody else had caught those, and I made addendums to those videos. And I probably will end up making more addendums to other videos as the time goes along. And I'll interconnect them so that people can go from one to the next and see what I'm talking about. But if people don't question things and they don't think about the topics they've just been presented, well, they're never going to advance. And that's why I'm leaving them up there. You know, I'm human. I'm flawed. People get this idea I've got some PhD. I don't have a PhD. I have one little certificate for data processing, and that's all I've got. So, if people think I've got some PhD in mathematics, I don't. However, I am bringing up these topics to you, and you are now being exposed to information that you probably would not have been exposed to otherwise, because the information I'm exposing you to is usually found in very high-end math books that nobody ever reads. Well, now, you're getting the information, and you're getting the information the way that you can understand it. Now, I'm not talking about you, J Star Ed. You understand all this stuff. I'm talking about people, and I've had this happen where people will come in to my workplace and bring me a 35mm disposable camera and try to stick it into a digital kiosk. I have seen that happen. And I'm sitting here going, okay, if people are doing that, I can't even imagine what else they don't know. So, before you clamor all over me because I've done all this, understand I'm dealing with an audience that is about a fifth of what we are. And I'm doing the best I can to help them, and sometimes I screw up. But, like I said, I don't receive any compensation for any of this stuff, so there you go. But I did tell you in the video of hyperreal numbers that I will cover that in a future video. That all I gave them was a rudimentary understanding of hyperreal numbers. Yes, hyperreal numbers are numbers that are so infinitely big that you couldn't really write them down, or so infinitesimally small that really you couldn't write those either. And I will present that in a future video. I said that in the hyperreal number video, and I fully intend to go into this in greater detail in a future video. I just haven't done it yet because I don't feel that people, they don't know sequences of series, they don't know certain things, they don't know the polar coordinate system, so therefore it would not be right for me to teach them hyperreal numbers at this time. But one of these days, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So, I do appreciate your comment, and hopefully this little correction here will satisfy you and satisfy my audience. And I will tell everybody in a future video, and I will also say that when it comes to these imaginary units and these imaginary numbers, I will cover both topics further in depth in a future video when we reach sequences and series. Alright, so hopefully that satisfies you. I will tell you more in a future video, so stay tuned.